Okay, well, here we are again, Ed, talking about your book, How They Make It Work. Chapter 6, or habit number 6, is all about laughter and the importance of laughter in healthy relationships. So, what is it that you want us to know about the role of laughter?
Well, simply stated, that laughter is a very important part of a healthy marriage, in fact, a healthy relationship of any kind. I think we've all heard the little soundbite, laughter is good for the soul. Well, just in the last 10 years or so, there's a science that's developed called helotology, and helotologists are researchers who study laughter and the effects on human beings. The word gelo is a Greek word for laughter. That's where that comes from. So what they've found is that not only is it good for the soul, probably, maybe what that means is it's good for us physically. They've found that it helps in lowering blood pressure. They've found that it helps reduce anxiety, and it helps in our overall health in terms of our bodily functions. They've also found that socially, when there's laughter in a relationship, it creates a certain connection between the two people or the two groups of people who have applied laughter to their relationship. And in corporate world, they found that when there is a little laughter in negotiations, there's really usually more of a smooth negotiating process. They've found that there is more enjoyment in the process of negotiating. So from a social standpoint, it's also very, very beneficial. So if it's good for us physically and it's good for us socially, I think it stands to reason that the more laughter, healthy and appropriate laughter in our marriage relationships, probably the less tension, the less anxiety, the better we negotiate, the better we understand each other.
I imagine that in relationships where tension builds, like negotiations say,
Right.
adding laughter can just sort of deflate all of that sort of building tension there.
I think that's a good way of saying what the researchers have found. And you know, I think too, they've looked at laughter with little children, and they've found that generally speaking, kids who are able to laugh, in particular who are able to laugh at themselves, usually have more friends, and they have less discipline problems, and they're just generally physically and emotionally healthier kids. If you track most children though through adult years, I think you'll find that there's a loss of easy laughter as we get older, and as the pressures of the world come upon us. A little kid has nothing to worry about, and so it's easy to laugh. And so it becomes more necessary, I think, to be intentional about our laughter, and to really recognize that maybe we have to work a little harder at finding things to laugh about and to laugh at as we grow older. And certainly in marriages, I think usually in early years or early months when there aren't as many pressures and tensions, there's a lot more laughter oftentimes. And we want to really work hard at intentionalizing and continuing in that process of finding humor in maybe even some of our mistakes.
Yeah, because when our significant other sort of rubs against us wrong, oftentimes it's about something that I'm doing, say.
Right.
Like, for instance, I notice I gesticulate a lot. So my wife is constantly talking about how that kind of sort of cracks her up. And in one of the videos we were watching of us having a conversation, she said, "Oh, there it is again." And I could have easily taken that as a frustration or gotten angry about it.
Yeah, right.
But I was thankfully able to just kind of laugh about it. Like, yes, I mean, I don't see myself gesticulating all the time because I'm not watching myself in a video.
Yeah.
But that ability to be able to be self-aware and therefore to see the humor in my own actions,
Right.
that requires a lot from each individual to be able to laugh at themselves.
It does. And you know, maybe a little more difficult, but just as important, is inviting other people to your spouse to laugh with you about yourself, and to be able to laugh with, not at, but with your spouse. And it's really important, though, to recognize, wait a minute, this is okay for me to join in laughing with her. But you got to be real careful about that, because if she's not laughing and you are, then you're not laughing with her, you're laughing at her. So it can be a little tricky, but it's so important to recognize just how significant a change in a relationship can be when you find things every day to giggle about, to laugh about, to find humor in.
When couples are having difficulties, I'm sure it's very difficult to find laughter in those situations. What ways can couples who are struggling through issues still find some of that laughter in a relationship, or at least within themselves?
Well, oftentimes the laughter about difficult situations needs to come after the fact rather than in the midst of it. But if you can look back on some of your little squabbles and your little nuances and laugh about them after the fact, and laugh together about them after the fact, I think that's one of the things that I've found brings a connection between people in relationship, whether it's in marriage or in other social relationships as well. The whole idea is to not take ourselves so seriously.
I can see, based on what you said about the research of laughter and how important it is to draw people together, to make a connection,
Right.
that even talking about, hey, remember 5 or 10 years ago when this thing happened, remember how funny that was, or even just to be able to find things in your past as a couple that you can laugh together about now. That probably would be a helpful aspect of how laughter can be brought into even a difficult situation.
Yeah. Even to look back and say, it wasn't that funny then, but knowing what we know now, that was pretty funny, or pretty ironic, or something. It's not always getting a deep belly laugh. It's just kind of finding a little bit of the lightness in life that you don't find in a relationship that's struggling. If you stop to think about it, if a relationship, if a marriage is going down the tubes, I think you can pretty well assume that there's not a lot of laughter going on behind closed doors.
And so how to bring laughter into that, even if it's not about something that happened now, but just in general, how do we bring a levity into a relationship, even if it's a difficult relationship?
Right.
Sounds important and powerful.
Very, very important. And maybe that'll mean coming home from a day at work and just relating a funny episode that happened, or something that you've read that's humorous. Just sharing that kind of thing and laughing together, I think brings together a connection, so that when there is a conflict, you do it in a healthier way, because you're with somebody who you've laughed with.
Well, thanks, Ed. It's good to talk about this, because we're talking about what are the habits of a healthy relationship, and bringing in something as healthy as laughter seems to be a really important part of achieving this kind of relationship.
Yeah, it is. And by the way, our next chapter chat that we'll be recording will be on vulnerability and the importance of vulnerability, the difficulty that we have in being vulnerable in our relationships. So hopefully you'll tune into that when we've posted it.
Great. Thanks, Ed.
You bet.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
One thing is important.